Hey everybody, this is Richie Allen, and you are watching the Make Peace with War podcast. We fight battles every day: sickness, disease, discouragement, depression, anxiety, financial issues, devastating events, deep losses. The state of our external and internal worlds and the state of the church can leave us with physical, mental, and spiritual wounds from the battle. The goal of Make Peace with War is to walk through these battles together and draw strength and encouragement from each other, to master a mindset of peace in the middle of warfare, internal peace in external chaos. Listen, I don't have all the answers, but I know this: we find the answers when we search for them. So let's discover together how to fight our battles, not just with peace, but from peace, from a peaceful place that is deeply anchored and isn't shaken in storms. Make Peace with War is a journey into living by, through, and in the Spirit, with deep discussion and practical insights into becoming peaceful warriors. Welcome to Make Peace with War. Hey guys, thanks again for joining us on the church's series of Make Peace with War. This is a continuation of the last episode, and we're still talking more about our faith journeys, and we're going to dive into a little bit of a different area of it, but it's a great conversation. And I also want to just say to you, we have gotten so many people that have reached out to us, each of us individually, thanking us for this podcast. And it's not, we just thought we would have a conversation, and then that conversation turned into another one and another one and another one. And so here we are at episode, I don't know where we are right now, but part 5 or 6 on the church's series. And we, I don't know. I think we might even keep going. We might keep doing this. This is a lot of fun. So thank you for your input, for your feedback, for your encouragement, for sharing, for supporting, and continue to do that. And just that helps us to know that what we're saying is actually resonating with you, and it is making a difference in people's lives. And I literally sat down tonight and had a conversation with somebody that just said, thank you for this podcast. It really speaks to me and speaks from something that I've gone through. And man, that we love to hear those kinds of things. So thank you for watching, for listening. Thank you for supporting and sharing. And do that. Share this podcast with others, because there are other people that may not have a voice for to speak some of the things that they're feeling, and sometimes it just feels good to have somebody else that is saying what you've been feeling all along, and you just don't have the opportunity to say it. And so we hope that this is being a blessing to you. So look forward to the next episode, and the next episode, and the next episode. And in the process today, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, the continuation of this conversation. God bless. It's just like, let's just simplify. Mm-hmm. Find, like, the most important thing is to have the love of God. That's the most important thing. And then to share that love with the people that you can share it with, and that will receive it. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like, beyond that, nothing else matters. Yeah. No. It really doesn't. No. I mean, we want to make it matter, but it doesn't.
Look, I have found the more stuff you have, the more problems you have. Yes. So I think the closer you get to God, and I think the more peace you have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you realize those things. And I love Paul. I love reading the life of Paul, and just how content he was. Mm-hmm. How content he was with the worst conditions. Yep. He was so content. He just had peace.
He did.
He realized nothing else mattered.
In whatsoever state I am, to be content.
I love that.
Like, he made it a point. I will make myself content today. Yeah. Even if I don't feel it, I'm determined to be content. He got it.
He got the bigger picture.
Yep. And that's what it is. It's in our hands. Yeah. A lot more than we think it is. Mm-hmm. Like, the responsibility for how our life turns out, the responsibility for a lot of these things is a lot more in our hands than we think. Yes. And all of it goes, if we want to have success is being content.
Yeah.
It's being content in whatever I'm sitting in.
Which is a mindset, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
It really is. You know, there are days I have bad days. I just did did on Instagram, a deal on Instagram to where, you know, I did like questions and, you know, people see your highlight reel. And I made it a point to say, guys, like, this is my highlight reel. You're catching me on a great day. Like, not always like this. I have bad days. I just don't stay there.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Like, everything is a mindset. You have to train yourself to be content. I'm sure there were days when Paul was sitting in that prison for so long to where he had, you know, moments where he was just like, I just want to die. Like, this is horrible. Yeah. But no, you train yourself. Like, this is a mindset. I'm going to be content. I'm going to get up tomorrow. My circumstance is going to probably look the same. But I am not going to, I'm not going to feel this way.
Nope.
I'm going to allow myself to feel this way for this moment.
Yep.
This will pass.
Yeah.
This is a feeling, and it will pass. Tomorrow is going to be a different day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's a walk of faith, not feelings.
Yes, exactly.
It absolutely is. I don't know. I'm going to keep talking about Moses, but Moses is so interesting to me, all about this whole thing. But do you remember, guys, when the children of Israel were running from Pharaoh, and Moses stops them and says, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." Right? That's a great scripture. Everybody uses that, right? Just stand still and watch the Lord come through. Do you know what? That wasn't God that said that. That was Moses. You know what God said? The very next scripture. Moses said, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." And the Lord looks at Moses and says, "What are the children of Israel doing still standing there? Tell them to get up and move." Like, all this thing about standing still and seeing the salvation of the Lord's going, "No,
move.
You have to run.
Yeah.
Like, go, move. It's your responsibility." And we're all standing still, wait on the Lord. You know, no, get up and do it. Like, you make your reality, right? You do on some level. Obviously, you have the blessing of God. I'm not trying to turn this into some whatever, but you make the reality that when God gives you this stuff, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Well, think about the man laying by the pool. He said, "Pick up your mat."
Yes.
Like, it required action.
Yes.
Like, you want to, like, get in the game.
Exactly. Like, you stand up, right? Yeah, anyway.
Oh, no. What just happened there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a Richie thought he was going to share with us?
No. I'm going to let it go. But yeah, I mean, you do. You make it. And it does help to recognize that. Now, it doesn't help for the people who are lazy and that blame it on God.
Or
right?
can we, this is like off topic, but on topic. Y'all, I'm going to look at the camera for this one. Can you please stop giving the devil credit for everything? Because that's the other one that drives me insane. It's like, oh, my car broke down. God, it's just the devil at work. No, girl, you haven't got an oil change in 40,000 miles, okay? Quit giving the devil credit.
Exactly.
It drives me crazy when people want to give the devil credit for everything. I'm like, no, sometimes you're dumb and you make bad choices.
Like, you didn't save up enough money to buy a nicer car.
Like, so, the devil is like, man, that wasn't even me. But thanks.
And we all blame God. I've been guilty. Yep. I've been in some of my lowest moments, and I've literally blamed God. Like, how did you allow this to happen?
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew even when I was blaming God, it's not God's fault. It's not, because things just happen. They just happen.
They happen, and it's 95% of the time, or maybe 100. I don't know. It's people.
It's people.
Right? It may not be me.
Yeah.
And so, to be clear, it's not always my fault.
Yeah.
Right? When something goes bad, but it's somebody.
Yes.
Like, somebody's had a part in it, right?
Yeah.
If you were abused, it wasn't your fault.
No.
But somebody was broken, and it affected them. So that it all comes from somebody, and it is what it is. I mean, God will be with us in all of the situation, but He may not intervene. You have to do it. Like, I don't remember where I've heard this before, and I probably would regret knowing, but the idea that God has already given us the knowledge. Like, God, help me be a better parent. okay, there's a book. You can read the book. There's the knowledge that I've already given you. No,
There's
but
no
God, you've got to like
excuses
download
today.
this to me. No, it's not that.
No.
Like help me to draw closer to you, Lord. Okay,
There's steps to do that.
pray and read the thing that I've given you. Like do that, study that, and you will get closer to me.
I do get really frustrated though, because I do want to help people, and it's hard for me when I'm talking to someone who is stuck in that mindset, who, where you're like, you can do this, you can do that, and, oh, but this, and oh, but that. Who's the guy, the Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore?
Eeyore.
Yeah.
Eeyore. Those, so that, like, that's where I have to pray to God for patience, because I know, like, what I have overcome, and I don't have that mentality. Now, do I ever, like, I do go there every now and then, because I think that's in our nature for us to go there, but then I quickly realize, and I like pull myself back up out of that, but I have a real struggle with talking to those people, because I want to help. It's like I can see the roadmap. I can sit right here, Richie, and tell you right now your number one qualities. Like, you should do this, this, this. You too, Nat. I could probably see more things than you can see for yourself. And so I love talking to people and trying to encourage people. I have a hard time when I just want to get them and say, get out of that mindset.
Right. It's a victim mentality, right?
It is.
It's the idea that everything happens to me.
Yes.
Right? And it's not I happen to it.
Yes.
Right? And which is really where we've got to go. It's like, I'm going to happen to this, right? Whatever this situation is, I'm going to do my part.
Yes.
And then the parts that I'm weak in, God does the rest, right? In our weakness, He is made strong. So God will do that. But He does expect us to just get up and do it.
He does. Yeah. And I think we'll always have those people who with those victim mindsets. And I think, all of those people just have to get to a point in their life where they've had enough.
Yeah.
And then, hopefully they'll pick themselves back up and just, keep going towards health. But that's why I do what I do and speak about my life, is because I want people to hear that message.
Yeah.
I want people to know there's always a way out. You can always do better, that you have to do it for yourself. You have to show up for yourself. Like you said, God's not a genie in a bottle.
No,
you can't rub on a lamp and get your way. You have to put some legs to it for something to be able to run and take off.
And John of the Cross wrote a book, and he talks about the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is that moment where you finally realize, I can't. You're right. I have nothing. Right.
Nothing.
But that is a necessary thing for you to get to. You've got it because you're externally focused that whole time, and then dark night of the soul changes your focus internally, and you start to see, oh, okay, I have to do these. Like it's my responsibility. What happened to me isn't necessarily my responsibility, but my responsibility, how I react to it, is very, very important.
That's right.
Right? Exactly. So
that's why you hear people. Joyce Myers comes to mind. You hear people who can say, I'm thankful for my worst day. Yes. And she will get up and she will talk about her testimony and how her father abused her for years. And she can say, I'm thankful for that, which is, I've seen it. I've been in the room and this caught people off guard, but I understand what she's saying. It's because it was a stripping of away. It was just this dark place. Like that was her low. Yep. But that is where she was made strongest.
Yes.
God has to strip things away sometimes and take things out of our life. And it's not always God. Like we said, things just happen. But it's at our lowest point where we're forged,
Yes.
And that's where we're made. And we find out what we're made of.
Oh man, we don't grow in the easy days.
No.
We don't grow in the easy days. I am not the same person that I was a year ago.
Yeah.
Not the same person that I was 7 years ago. And neither are you, and neither are you.
No.
We're different people, and we've grown.
Yeah.
You choose, though, right? You choose whether or not you're going to grow or go.
Well, I I was working yesterday in the garden, and I can have like a million stories. And there is something Jason feels so strongly about, like partnership with the Lord in, the garden.
In the nature.
And so, but I was working on the tomatoes, and I did a little video about like removing the suckers. Like there's a lot of stripping away that has to happen. There's a lot of pruning and if you want to have real growth, because the suckers pop up and it actually looks like it's just a healthy part of the plant, but it's not going to produce anything. And it's actually going to hinder the plant from growing strong where it needs to grow strong. So you pick those off, you remove the suckers, and you need to do that in your life too, not just in your garden. And then you prune anything that's touching the ground, because you don't want the leaves sagging, touching the ground. And so you trim, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but then that's how you get the growth. Like I spent a whole day working on tomatoes before we went on our trip. And then we came back and we were like blown away at the growth that had happened in such a short time. But it's because of the work that we did, and the stripping away and the pruning and removing the things that are sucking the energy and holding you back from growth.
Look, my life looks so different than it did a year and a half ago. I still haven't found a church.
We didn't get back to the Easter thing.
We did not. I still don't have a church. My relationship with God is totally different. Than
how? Let's talk about this for a little bit, because I think this is something that we can all kind of learn from.
My relationship with God is great. But so different. The conversations that I have with God are real. They're intense, really intense. They're daily.
Yep.
Cookie cutter is nowhere. I would say it used to be very cookie cutter.
Yeah. The formula, right?
It was a formula, for sure. It was checking off the box of how to be a good Christian girl. And now it is just messy and beautiful.
Yep.
Sometimes I feel like it's borderline. Sometimes I feel like, are you going to disown me today because of what I just said to you, Jesus? But it's just real and it's just raw. And yes, I'm not in a church, not because I don't want to be.
Right.
Never realized how hard it was to really find a church. How you have to have that connection, not only like just to the pastor, to the leadership, everything. And for me, I think my walk's probably a little bit different from most people walk with that, because I was so heavily involved in the church.
Yep.
I got to see behind the scenes. And so it all matters to me, right? And so I'm very, very careful about what I'm looking for. But honestly, I'm saying the things right now that would have made me break out in hives a year and a half ago. That I would have been like, red flag, like, don't go the way she's going. But now I'm like on the other side of it, and I'm like, no, like I love this relationship. I love right where we are at. Do I wish some things were different? Yeah, sure. Like I really do wish I could find that community for my children.
Right.
For myself, because I believe in the church and I believe in community, but I'm also okay with me taking my time.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, I don't know, like I like where I'm at, and I'm just trying to protect it.
Yeah.
Because it's just real, and I love that I'm not checking a box. I don't read my Bible every day.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because I am a single mama who's busy, who's running a household, who's, it's just so much.
I can see the headlines now.
Oh my gosh, but I have the word of God in my heart.
Yeah, you do.
There's not a day that goes by. There's not many moments that go by where I'm not talking to God in my way. And so I just think it's very real. And it's just being on this side of it. being on this side of like having everything stripped down and just having to reevaluate everything. God, I'm so thankful for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thankful
Me
for
too.
it. And I used to be the one to say, nope, you need to do it this way. You know, that's kind of danger zone, guys. Don't get outside the four walls of the church, and
Right.
don't go thinking too much.
Right.
Don't go thinking too much.
Right. Yeah, you start asking questions. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
You don't ask questions because God, you can't question God.
I've got so many questions. Like I'm going so much deeper with God.
Right.
Most of the time when they say that, though, it's not God they're talking about. It's the leader.
Yeah, see,
That's what
there
they
you go.
really mean. Don't question the leader.
I just, for me, Natalie, and you and I have talked a lot about this here recently, something that God's been dealing with me is like I was so close to the situation. I was so close to, I'm in this box. I'm just in this box. I see it visually, and all I can see is what's around me in this small little box. And now that I'm out of the box, it's so much of a bigger picture.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a bigger
It
picture.
is such a bigger picture. And I'm looking at people in the box now, and I'm like,
I'm sorry you're in the box.
Yeah.
sorry you're in the box, but there is a whole lot of living going on out here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and when you're in it,
yeah.
you can't
See it
because you don't have
like
perspective.
this. And everybody sounds the same.
Yep.
Everybody looks the same. Everybody's doing the same thing.
And God can only do things in that circle, right? When you're there, God only
And he is
works
doing
and
things.
operates in that
He is
circle. And he
moving.
is,
He is
right?
doing things.
But you've confined him to this little
You
world.
confined him.
Right?
Yeah.
You confined him to this little world, and you've literally shackled the hands of God. And he's waiting for you to allow him to actually do the bigger things and the different things, but you've confined him to this world, and it's so
this
much
little
more.
checklist.
Yeah.
It's so much more. It's like you got to pray every day. You got to read your Bible every day. You got to,
I'm
and you got to
telling you, God
also,
loves
you also
messy.
got to
This is
pray.
where it's
You also have to pray exactly like this, right? You got to
Yes.
have praise first, and then your request, and then supplication. All those things, right? It's like the list of this is how you're supposed to pray. That's not how my prayers are working right now.
Yeah.
Like my prayers, most of my prayers are full on just conversations and just every once in a while saying something to him throughout the day. It doesn't. It's not an hour and a half long session where I'm laying in the floor, screaming and crying and
Sometimes it's that.
Sometimes it is, right? But it's not that way every day.
You're not laughing in the spirit on a daily basis.
But I mean, maybe no.
No,
But
sometimes mine are literally out in the middle of the yard trying to pull a freaking weed out of the flower bed and saying, "Why is it so hard being a girl, God? Why?"
This is why Colin's doing
I can't
work in the
relate.
yard right now.
I can't relate.
No, literally, like if my neighbors could hear me, like mine are more these days frustrations that I'm just like tossing to him like a best friend. Like it's a conversation.
And isn't that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
think
Like
so.
this is literally the whole desire that God has always had, always from the very beginning, is I want somebody that will walk and talk with me during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the cool of the evening, just walking through the garden and talk, and let's just talk. Like that's literally all he wants.
Because we're so lonely. I think as people, we are so lonely and we just want to be seen,
Yep.
and he sees us.
Yeah.
Adonai Elroy.
That's why I feel so close to him, because I know that he sees me.
Oh man, it just makes me. I want to weep when I think of that right
And
now.
I love that Heaven wrote that. I love that she felt that.
Yeah.
She did. She did. And that's actually what I'm going to put on this. This is my midlife crisis.
Well, cheaper
Right.
than most
that's
midlife
all-
crises.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh God.
Okay, maybe this is the
my
first
God.
part of
Oh
it.
my God. We'll be monitoring you closely.
Not the first part. No.
Listen. So, all right. The short story on this is I've never had a tattoo in my life. Right. Never ever. In fact, I was.
What about Leviticus,
Yeah,
Richie?
my God, I'm going to hell. But we went to Israel a month ago, and while we're there, we're in literally the old town in the old
So
city of
jealous of
Jerusalem,
this.
and there is this tattoo parlor called Razuk's Tattoos. It's literally the oldest existing tattoo parlor in the world. It was started in 1300.
That's why I'm going back to Israel.
Wow.
It's not going to be. I'm going to go just for this. That's why I'm going to Israel.
It's hilarious.
I'll be praying for y'all.
Oh, gosh. But it was Egyptian Christians that started it in 1300. And it's been passed down from generation to generation. It's in a little alleyway in the middle of old city Jerusalem, and it's just one of those old cobblestone streets. And you walk in, and this is the Jerusalem cross. And the bottom line is that's the same stencil that they used in 1300s, which is super cool.
So you were told.
Yeah, well, so I was told. But it was a super cool experience, and that's why I did that. But one of the things that I put on here is this is El Emet, which is the God, faithful God of truth, Psalm 31:5, faithful God of truth. But the other one that I want to put is El Roy, Adonai El Roy in Hebrew, because
so cool.
just that's heaven's thing. But he sees us. Mm-hmm. He sees us and he wants to be with us. And that's literally God with us. Yeah. Emmanuel, God with, it's not Jesus came down to earth. It's literally God with us, Emmanuel. He wants to be with us all the time. So why do we withhold that by having to do it in formula, right? When it's so much more than you show up on Sunday.
Yeah.
And you show up on Wednesday, if you have Wednesday Bible study or something, you show up. It's all of the other stuff is the part that matters more.
Yeah.
It does.
It's the daily walk, the old song, just to walk with him means everything.
Yeah.
To me.
Oh my gosh, that's old.
Remember that one?
My dad preached a sermon one time, and he was talking about how, you soar on wings like eagles, you run and walk. And he was like, the final, step of your relationship with the Lord is a walk. That's a mature relationship.
Right?
A mature relationship is learning to walk.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a new believer, you're that eagle soaring, and then you have to run, because if you go from soaring to walking, you're going to break a leg. He explained this way better than me. Maybe I'll find the clip, but I think that's such a good thought there, that it is really that walk lets you know you're in a mature relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is. Perfect love casts out all fear. Perfect love, the word perfect is not perfect. It literally means complete, fully complete. And that's really what we're looking at. We're trying to do, right? From the very beginning, we start as a child, like 3 years old. We are closer to God then than we would ever be, because we're coming from God, right? We're close. We have no shame. We have none of those things. We don't understand ego. We don't know any of that. We'll run, like my kid would run through the house naked and just laugh and think it's funny, and everybody's laughing at them. And they think it's funny too, and they don't care, right? Just shake their booty and go to the other one.
Still doing that. So.
Well, me too. But then at some point, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that vicinity, shame starts getting introduced, and our ego starts to be affected, and then we separate from God, it's a lifetime of a journey of us trying to get back to that place that we were in the beginning, which is the walk, right? It's not all of these other things. Yeah. It's just the simple, I just want to be with you.
Yep.
Like nothing else matters. I just want to be with you. And we built religions around all kinds of things, and we've built all these different things, but it's only about
him.
I want to be with you.
You know,
period.
as people, I think we need those boxes to check off. I think we need that. But when everything else fails us in life and we just get to that realization that we just want to be with him, that's what matters. And it's not lost on me, like this world will fall away one day. Yeah. Like we're not living for this world. We're living for heaven. That's what it's all about, folks. And if I can just have a walk with Jesus, my personal walk with him, and steward my life well, and love others, and do good in this world, and raise these children to do well in this life, and to love Jesus, that's what matters.
That's
everything else is going to go away.
Yeah.
It's about the people that we can influence around us. It's about our personal walk with the Lord. And then one day, folks, this life is going to be over, and we're going to be on the other side.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And like, wouldn't you rather be on the other side with somebody that you know really well? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm cool with this because like, that's the whole thing about perfect love, like fully completed love. And I saw this with heaven. I saw this journey when she got sick. I saw this journey of growth and maturity spiritually because she started to understand the important things, right? The things that were more important, and because we get wrapped up in things in life. But she started to see it more and more important. And she gets to the end of her life, and there was this moment where she literally just was, the love was fully and complete, and there was no fear. Perfect love casts out fear. There was no fear. She was ready. She was ready. That last minute, the literally last hour of her life was just such a cool thing, and I'm not going to go over it right now, but that last thing where she prayed and she said, I'm ready. I'm ready to go now. I've been faithful. I'm ready. She was. She was 100% ready. And just now she closed her eyes and opens them up, and she's in the presence of the person that she just had created this beautiful relationship with. Why not? Why? That's what this is all about. It's not about all the other stuff. It's about relationship with God. Period. The church stuff. I didn't go anywhere. Well, actually, I did go on Easter to lead worship.
I was like, wait a second.
I'm the only one who did. No,
I went to church. Okay, listen.
That's why I said this is not fair. I feel like the only purpose of bringing this up is to point out the fact that I did not go to church.
That's okay.
Well, I didn't go anywhere the week before or the week after. Does that count?
We need to have an episode of when returning to church feels like returning to the scene of the crime. That's an episode for the future. So I'm gonna let y'all off the hook. I do go to church every Sunday, and yes, and it's just
you're so much more mature than we are.
It's just who I am. No, I'm definitely not. I am definitely not. I go to a small church where I get to go to church and sit there and do nothing. And I don't know if that's the right attitude, but I like it. And the pastor just literally preaches scripture. And he doesn't have a lot of sticky statements and one-liners that are going to be clips for Instagram. Just saying.
I watch church online, so I think that counts.
It definitely counts.
Of course
it definitely counts.
But getting my children into a good church really matters to me. So if you know of any.
But listen, I can tell you that if there's one part of this journey of kind of redefining what church looks like and what my relationship with God looks like, that is the hardest part. Is there's a part of me that still wants my children to have an experience, some of the experiences that I had growing up, right? With the connection with friends and all of that, and doing what we're doing right now, which is house church, is different than that. And I'm trying to figure out what's that going to look like if we do a church or house churches. How can we do that and build some sort of community? But even in that process, every once in a while the kids will be like, I miss such and such. Why can't we go back there? And I'm like, hey, we're not going. Trust me. There's a lot of toxic. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But that's probably the biggest for me, the biggest hurdle in this season of my life, because I'm cool with coming together with a small group of people and talking about God and doing that sort of thing. But I still haven't figured out the answer for the kids yet. And
there are healthy churches.
Yes, there are
healthy churches.
When you find one, let me know.
Well, they're not going to be perfect.
Well, there's no perfect. Listen, remember,
I am kidding. Okay, I know. I know that.
Remember, here's the church. Here's the steeple. Open it up, and here's all the people.
Right?
Churches are made up of people,
exactly,
and people are flawed.
Exactly.
So there's not going to be a perfect church.
No.
Exactly.
I've been happy with where we've been. It's like I said, it's a small church. I'm not anti mega church. I'm not going to say that, but for me, it's a no dog. So I want to go to a small church where I can talk to the pastor should I choose.
Well, we still have wounds. And that's the bottom line. I have very, open, raw wounds. So I'm being very careful, very protective of myself and my children.
Well, and you have to have a safe place.
I have to have a safe place, and I am very aware that, I'm not saying every church I've been to or tried is a toxic place.
Right.
I'm just saying I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not in the place right now.
Right.
And
Well,
so
it's
I'll know when I
sometimes you'll
am.
see sometimes you'll see something that reminds
It's a
you
trigger.
of something, even if it's benign. It reminds you of something, and you're like, I'm out. Right?
Honestly, I have felt like God. I was going from church to church to church, looking like I was like on a hunt. Like, we got to find this because it's who I am. And I really felt like God said, stop. Stop. And he was being protective of me.
Yeah.
He wanted me to stop, and he gave me the permission that said, you know what, you are okay right where you are. This is actually where I want you.
Yeah.
And I love that about God, because that just shows me, he's taking care of me in my heart.
Okay, I posted something about Heaven's 6-month thing a couple days ago, but this story fits with this too. Ezra chapter 3, when children of Israel were captive, and the pagan king Cyrus lets them back into the promised land. Back in. They come in, and for 6 months, they did not sacrifice, which I thought, man, that's super weird, because they sacrificed all the time. They would sacrifice when they were in Egypt, in prison in Egypt. But they come back in, and they're back home in their promised land, and they don't sacrifice for 6 months. And I'm like, why would they do that? And then on the 7th month, the first day of the 7th month, they start sacrificing again, and then they start to rebuild the tabernacle. But they took 6 months. And I felt like the Lord spoke to me and just reminded me that he did this a while back when I left Hope City. And then again here with the 6 month period with Heaven. I think God just says, you know what, it's okay that when you've come out of trauma, that you need to sit and reacclimate to the new normal. You don't have to do ministry. You don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to do those things. You literally just sit for a while.
And it's probably the healthiest thing you can do.
Absolutely the healthiest thing, because it allows the wounds to heal.
Yeah.
It allows the inflammation to settle down, right? And then all of a sudden, now you can look at things more clearly. You can start to rebuild the tabernacle. You can start to redo and redefine what the tabernacle looks like in your life, but you can start moving forward. But that's 6 months of just sitting for a bit.
Yeah.
And then going on.
There's just wisdom in that. We were talking about this before we started the podcast today, just about how when you're moving through grief, they say don't make any major lifestyle changes, any major purchases, things like that. I've done some stupid because I had to make some major decisions during a divorce where I wish that I could have just sat and not had to do anything, because you were in a fog and you're just open. You're just wide open. So I'd actually, prefer you to please don't go do ministry if you're going through a hard time, because then your toxicity and your unhealth and all the things that you're carrying are going to be on somebody else.
Right.
Just sit.
Right.
Just
because
sit.
there is a difference between speaking from a wound and speaking through a wound.
Yes.
And a lot of times when we've been wounded and we still try to jump straight into, I talked to a minister that had just left a toxic situation, and he was like thinking about starting a church, and I was like, don't do it right now. Like, please wait.
Yeah.
Please wait. And one of my mentors, Lance Witt, great guy, author, just a wonderful guy. He used to be an executive pastor for a large church, and when it exploded, it wasn't super healthy. And anyway, he left there. He told me, he said, Rich, when you leave, it's going to take you a year and a half. It may take you 2 years.
Yeah.
He said it took my wife two full years before she was fully healed from some of that stuff. And he was not wrong. We have to take the time to heal.
We do.
Otherwise, we will be speaking from a wound.
Yeah.
Right? But if you can get past that, now you can speak through the wound. You can learn from the wound, and you can speak with with wisdom now, and not bitterness.
Yes.
After that, but it has to heal, because
It
if
does.
it doesn't,
It has to, so.
if it doesn't, you're going to be toxic.
Yeah.
You're going to be toxic.
You're going to be walking with a limp for a very long time.
It's true. It's true. Oh my gosh. Well, my God, we're going to have to do a.
We're going to split this one.
We're going to split this one, I think, because this is good. Because the last half we talked a little bit more about church, but anything else that's on y'all's heart about that, like, because I'm as far as just your faith walk right now and what's going on, faith walk, church, whatever. What was that story you were? Remind me. Remind me the story.
This is in line with keeping a break. No, I said when my mom was in the 3rd grade, this is what happens to a lot of people that work in church, that once they see the behind the scenes, then, they have some issues with their ketchup or their faith. No. So when my mom was in the 3rd grade, they went on a field trip to a ketchup factory. And they were in the room with like the giant vats, and it had like all the tomatoes, and there were snakes in there. And so they were like, the kids are like freaking out, like, oh my gosh. And the guy that worked there, and hopefully this was a joke, but he was just like, don't worry, the chopper is going to take care of them. That's where this is headed next. And so my mom like had a ketchup wound. She like never wanted to eat ketchup again. And so I think that's
probably just killed it for me too.
Sometimes when we work in church and we see the behind the scenes and we see the snakes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We see the snakes, then it does feel like it's returning to the scene of the crime, and that we don't want to go back. And those wounds are so deep. And I think that, growing up a pastor's kid gives you the perspective, and I know you can relate to this, like pastors are just men, leadership, they're 100%. Just people. So sometimes I think it's easier for those of us that grew up in that setting to understand, like, my dad wasn't perfect. He was a good father, a good husband, a good man, but he wasn't perfect. So I can apply that to other people in leadership in the church.
Right.
But that's not everybody's experience or perspective. That's mine. And so I think that's really hard for people, is that they get hurt. And then you have all of these conversations about like church hurt and church wounds. And I'm not trying to take away from that, because real hurt, but it's hurt that happens at church. Right. And I think if people could shift that thought, it would help them so much in separating. And I know we talked about this on a podcast before, but in separating God and the church, because what ends up happening is we hold God accountable for what people did. And people are always going to fail us. Yep. They're always like, we're going to fail, like we all are. Right. We're just people. And so I think if we can have that thought process, it will just go a long way in that separation and understanding, like, hey, everybody's flawed. And to be honest with you, that's something that I've had to do really since January 19th of last year. I've had to get up every single day and say, God, they're just people. Help me forgive. Like, help me forgive. And I'm going to keep doing that until I don't have to anymore. And so, and just have that reminder and move forward. And that's why, like, I'm not throwing any shade at house church or not being in a church. But like, for me, that was something important. Like, I had to go to church the next Sunday. Right. And I've been to church almost every single Sunday since then, because I knew that I had to, because if I didn't, I might never go again. Yeah. And that's just where I was at. Yeah. And so knowing that I needed to have that boundary for myself of like, hey, and we've been to tons of churches and visited around, and but I knew, like, for me, I need to be in church. Right. And so it was important for me to make that happen as soon as possible, because if not, I'd be like my mom and never eat ketchup again.
That story is going to stick with me forever.
I love it. Well, I think the important thing in that situation is, what is it that you have to do to protect your relationship with God? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, figure that out and do that. Mm-hmm. Right. If your relationship with God is going to be more protected by taking a break, then take the break. Yep. Because there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and for me,
but if your relationship with God is going to be more protected by staying consistent in that situation, because that brings some level of comfort for you, or whatever it is that does that for you, then you do that.
Well, and I think for me, what the reminder that I needed and what the Lord kept bringing me back to is that the last 6 months of my ministry position, it was very difficult to go to church. It was very hard. It was pulling in the parking lot and sitting in the car like, you can do this, you have to do this. And what the Lord really reminded me when I did go to church the next Sunday and I just sat in a church somewhere was that, like, I love church and it is a part of who I am. And I needed that reminder. And like I said, we have our good friend's First Church right down the street from our house. I go there all the time. We have the church that you led worship at for Easter. We visited there. We visited tons of churches. And the common theme that I was reminded, regardless, and those churches are very different, by the way.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
All the churches that we visited were very different. But the common theme was that I enjoy this and I want this to be a part of my life. And it is helpful to me. Yeah. And it's nice. It was a break to just go and sit somewhere.
Yeah.
And I know that one day I'm not going to just be sitting somewhere. There probably is going to be work to do. I don't think that the Lord is done with me in that regard, but it's been really nice to just go somewhere and sit and be a part of and remember, I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good for me. And it helped me where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But what you said is absolutely correct. You've got to know what's going to be beneficial or what's going to be detrimental.
So something that I've been having a real struggle with lately is, finding a pastor that I don't know anything about. I love pastors. I love preaching. And I've been doing online church, and the pastors that have been my go-to for a long time, I have some kind of personal relationship with each one of them. And if you look for red flags, you're going to find them.
Yeah.
And those are my triggers right now.
Yeah.
And so I was literally getting to a place to where, like, I can't watch anybody. I can't watch these men who I love. I love their preaching. I love listening to them, but I'm finding out that, like, the triggers are just so loud. They're so loud in my face right now. And so, I don't know. I've just had to take a step back, and what's helped me is just realize, okay, that's not fair. Yes, if I'm looking for something, I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
At some point, until these men prove me wrong, I'm going to have to trust.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to trust. And I think for me, it's reminding myself of that, because I do have to remind myself weekly when I tune in. The triggers are there.
Yeah.
And I do have to guard myself to a certain degree, but I also have to remember they haven't fallen. They haven't done something. They don't deserve this. This is a real trigger, and I'm working myself through it. The alternative to not doing that is just not listening ever again. And I can't do that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I have to keep going, and I just have to trust until they prove me wrong.
Yeah. And I think the key to that is men are going to fail.
Yeah. They are.
And some of them, and none of them are going to be perfect. Because guess what? I ain't either.
I ain't either.
Right?
No.
And none of them are perfect. And so they're going to fail. They're going to fall. But when they do, who are we really walking with, right? And if we're walking with God and we've got the relationship with God that we need to have, we can learn something from the most flawed of men.
Yes, we can.
We can. We talked about that with the old man and the prophet, that whole story before. But we can learn something from flawed men, and so we don't. But we don't have to. We don't have to put our trust, our hope in them.
No.
Right.
Right. And as long as we don't put our hope in them, we can listen. We can get something, and if they mess up, we can keep moving.
We can keep moving.
Because our relationship wasn't wasn't based on their perfection.
No, but I can't allow these triggers to keep me from going to church.
Yeah.
I can't allow them to keep me from, listening.
Yeah.
To good preaching, because that's what fills me up.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. Just like you love going to church. Just like, even though you don't want the lights and the sound and the music and like the way it used to, it's because it was a trigger for you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It was a trigger for you. Yeah. But you also, you love that part. I know you, Richie. And I know you love that part too.
I think that's the tricky part too for me, is that like everything that I did for most of my life was related to production and worship and all of that, like the big productions and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And so
let's go back to the
but
UPC. Hey, West Monroe, the dramas. Come on.
He did it so much that at Disney last week, Lark, his 7-year-old, we go into this like performance.
She's a
of
production
Frozen,
all on her own.
And she's like, we're like, oh, this is going to be so great. And she's like looking around and she's like, oh, that's a snow machine. So there'll definitely be snow. And I was like, okay, tell me your dad's in production without telling me your dad's in production. We got a 7-year-old spotting snow machines and pointing it out for everybody else.
I understand like needing to pull away. Mm-hmm. I understand that. It's like you're just protecting yourself. It's a trigger.
Yeah, but it's weird in this season for me because I think I was telling Jason this past week that for like all the production and stuff that I've done all my life and that I poured myself into all my life, all the creative stuff and all of that, like it's almost like I will never use it again. Like I'm so done with it. I'm so done with it that I'll never use it again. And it almost feels like a loss. It feels like, man, my whole 40 whatever years of my life that I spent doing that, I'm not going to use it anymore. And it almost feels like a loss. It's not necessarily. And and you know, there was fruit that came from that, right? Mm-hmm. Whether or not I continue to do that is a different story. Although I've got 3 cameras around this room right now and video and all this stuff.
I was like,
we still in some way, shape, or form, I will always use those things.
Are you done with it?
Shut up. But you know, it's weird to kind of go to churches that don't do that anymore and prefer that to the other stuff. Mm-hmm. It may be a trigger. It may be a thing where I just realized, you know, for me, not for everybody, but for me, I don't want that or need that anymore, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of that too was I derived a lot of my identity from that too. Yes. And so now my identity, I'm trying to separate my identity from what I did and now wrap it around the relationship that I have with God. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that may require me to release those things. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I'm still in that spot right now. I don't know. I might do more production later in my life. I may not touch it again. I don't know. You
may not touch it. You may not go back to a church like that, but you appreciate it because you understand it and you were so good at it. And that was not a loss. I mean, we're laughing about this setup, right? But those things equipped you for whatever God has for you next.
Yeah. It does.
You know, it will be a part of you forever. We just don't know how it's going to look.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with that. I don't necessarily, you know, I do think that, you know, that's a candy stick is that I think we've overused production and made it into something that it shouldn't be.
Most definitely.
But that's over there. That's a whole other episode. But I think for real, I don't even know what I was going to say. So, see how that worked? That was awesome. But yeah, bottom line, just to get back to kind of where we started and maybe try to wrap it up is all of this is a journey.
Yeah.
And I think the key to fulfillment in life and abundant life is understanding that the journey is more important than success, the destination of success. Now, obviously, destination of being in the presence of the Lord is obviously our ultimate thing, but we're there.
Yeah.
We already there, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, heaven's going to be awesome, but it's kind of cool now too.
Yeah.
If we recognize that what we have is all we need. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a relationship with God. We can walk with God. All of this other stuff, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. This is a journey, and we're all on a different journey. We're all in different places too. Yeah. And I think that's important is I'm not in the same place that you are. Mm-hmm. You're not in the same place that I am. That doesn't mean you're further ahead than I am.
Right.
It means you're in a different place than I am. And people that are listening, people that are watching, may be in a different place than we are. That doesn't make them wrong and us right, us wrong and them right. It just, God deals with each of us individually.
That's right.
Again, seek out your own salvation with fear and trembling. It's your relationship with God. It's not our relationship with God. It's your relationship with
not
God.
Not a copy and paste.
Exactly. Mine's going to look a lot different than yours is. And it's going to look different than theirs. And so we got to be okay with that. Just make sure that the main thing stays the main thing. And that is, I just want to be close to God.
That's right.
And that's
in
it.
the words of the prophet Matthew McConaughey, you just got to keep living. L-I-V-I-N.
L-I-V-I-N.
Life's a journey. I love that guy. And he's a Texan. So there you go.
I know. I feel like he's going to run for president at some point.
He's going to do something.
Why didn't Jill pick him?
Bro, I'm like... He was on the list. I'm like, you need to understand. You're not old enough to see Dazed and Confused, but you need to understand.
That was his first movie, by the way.
His first movie, y'all.
Was it really?
Yeah. Very first one.
I did not realize that was his first one.
He's just a cool dude.
Oh, man, listen, nobody can roll a booger like he can.
Oh, my God. Don't take my Matthew McConaughey picture away. Jeez. I got ketchup on this side, which I really, really love. I got Matthew McConaughey on this side, which I really love.
Doing like this. Oh, my
Y'all
God.
should leave me alone. I'm messing with my life.
Wow. You know, I mean, hey, why not? Oh my God. Okay.
Well, sounds good to me.
I think we finally just
Did we figure it all out?
we killed that one with Matthew McConaughey booger and the ketchup.
And we figured your life.
Hey, the ketchup was great. I hope it made it, and it didn't.
I do too. I hope so. Thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, these 2 episodes of conversations that we've had about our faith journey. And listen, I want you to know something. If you are going through a crisis of faith, you are not alone. It's so important for you to recognize that and for you to know you are not alone. And you could be a pastor, you could be a church leader, you can be a pastor's wife or a pastor's husband, you can be a saint in the church, you can be somebody that's just not going to church now and you're not sure what you believe in God, about God right now. That's okay. I want you to know that you're seen, that you're heard, and most of all, I want you to know that God sees you. He knows you. He loves you, regardless of what you're thinking right now. And regardless of the struggles that you're having in your faith, He is not afraid of questions. He's not afraid of them. And He is happy to be there. And the biggest thing that I love about God is yes, God can heal and He can deliver and He can set free and He can do all those things. But the thing that is most important is that He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. And He is Adonai El Roy, the God who sees us. And those are the important things when we're going through a struggle in our faith. God sees you, He hears you, He knows you, and He is right there with you while you're walking through this. So I just want to encourage you today. If you're going through it, you're not alone. You can find people. There are other people that you can talk to. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to communicate with you. Whatever, direct message or comments or whatever. We'll connect to as many people as we possibly can, and we just want you to know that you are not alone, and God is with you, and we're for you as well. So God bless you, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, I want to take just a moment and tell you about a company that is doing something really, really unique in the space of marketing for churches. Zion Multimedia, owned by my friend Kyle Ewald, is making a massive shift to church marketing. They're really kind of reinventing the idea of marketing for churches. And I love it because it's a ministry-first approach. I'm not a fan of icky marketing. I'm not a fan of the typical marketing that just says, hey, come join what we're doing, come see us for the Easter service or whatever. I'm not a big fan of just that kind of icky marketing. It's hard for me even to market a lot of my stuff because I just don't like that kind of marketing. And so what's so cool about this ministry first approach is it connects you deeply with the people that you are reaching out to almost immediately in the process. If you followed me at all in social media, which by the way is at the Richie Allen, if you don't follow me, so go there. But if you see, there's the icky marketing part. But if you've followed me at all, you know that I'm a big believer in deep discipleship. And I do believe that the modern day church, for the most part, has kind of missed the mark in that area in favor of just pushing for that weekend service. And what you have to have for deep discipleship, first, you have to have deep connection. And what's so cool about what Zion is doing is that they are connecting you on a deep, deep level early in the process, one-to-one with the people that you're reaching out to. And what this will do is when they do decide to come to church, they're already connected. It's all like they already feel like family before they ever walk in the door. They already feel like they know somebody before they ever walk in the door. And that is going to get them, not only if they come, they're going to stay. And Zion has done such a great job that they have proven this is working. And there's a much greater result when you do it this way, this ministry first approach. I think if you're a pastor or a church leader of any kind in communications or connections or anything like that, you need to reach out to them. And the best way to reach out to Kyle and his team is go to ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. And they can get you set up. What's also cool right now is that they do a whole lot of other stuff. They do video production, they do websites, they do all kinds of stuff that you guys would find useful. Right now, they're actually doing like 50% off on a website, which is just great. But don't sleep on this. This is something that you really want to get involved in, and it's a massive blessing for just a little bit of investment. So go check it out, ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. Thanks for watching Make Peace with War. If you liked this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button. You can check out our website at makepeacewithwar.com, where you'll find out more about MPW, outtakes and resources from the show, show notes, links to my YouTube and IG channels, and more. Join us for upcoming episodes as we continue to learn how to become peaceful warriors. God bless.